Before you watch this episode of our City Current radio show, I want to invite you to join City Current's e-learning and online personal development platform called Growth Current. I'm Jeremy Park, host of the City Current radio show and CEO of City Current. Growth Current is your exclusive ticket to attend virtual events with global thought leaders, national guest speakers, and experts who can help you grow personally and professionally. It gives you access to success secrets, lessons learned, learning modules, and so much more. Being online, you can join us from anywhere in the world. Subscriptions are only $8 a month, or you can do bulk subscriptions for your team. Check out growthcurrent.com to learn more and to join us in our efforts to power the good. And now, on to the show. Welcome back to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're honored to be with our next guest, our friend. She is an award-winning author. The new devotional is out right now, the new book, What Does God Want You to Do Before You Die? Callie Daruk is the author. Callie, how are you doing? Let's start there.
Hi, Jeremy. I am honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for what you do in our community every day.
Hey, well, it's kind of a cool story in terms of what led you to write this book. And we have a personal tie to that. So before we get to that story, though, give us a little bit of just your background, and let's start there. Get to know Callie a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, I've been writing for a number of years, and for me, writing is without a doubt it's a calling. And because it's a calling, it's a duty, and it's a privilege and an honor. For me, words have always mattered, Jeremy. And so I take this position and this role very, very seriously, because words, as we know, we're in a situation in our nation where words are being flung around. So words really matter. And it's an honor to be able to have a profession where the words that I speak can enter into the hearts of others.
The other storyline that's really important is you being a mother, a wife, and your faith. And so talk a little about just being a mother, and I know that a big part of that with your twins was having your faith tested. And so that's a little bit of your personal story. Share a little bit of the faith and the personal test that you've gone through that you're now sharing with others.
Absolutely. Being a writer, I'm in the Christian market, and my faith is paramount to who I am and what I do. And about 12 years ago, I went into premature labor with my twin boys, and that started our family on a journey unlike anything I could have ever imagined. My sweet little Isaiah spent the first 324 consecutive days in 2 hospitals. He was at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital here in Nashville for 7 months. He went into liver failure and was life-flighted to Boston Children's Hospital in Massachusetts. And as a result of so many ups and downs and twists and turns, our son ended up having 13 surgeries. He came home with highly special needs. His twin also had special needs. I had a 2-year-old at the time. And the truth is, Jeremy, I just had more on me than I could possibly handle. I've professed to know Christ all of my life, but like I say many times, when your foundation is exposed for what it is when a storm comes along, and that was a storm of epic proportion in my life, and it exposed that my professions remained at that. And so that began a journey of truly coming to know Christ. And part of that journey was writing. I began journaling 9 years ago, and that turned into this beautiful writing career. Because for me, and I often say this, greater than the tragedy of going through tragedy is to go through it and do nothing with it. And so from the experiences that I had, through the brokenness, through the pain, through the triumph and the tragedy, I want to turn around and share that.
Let's talk about this devotional, this book that's out. And as I mentioned, there's a cool storyline on my end to City Current, and you being at an event, but I'll let you tell the story because it's your story. So share a little bit of just what led you to write this book.
Absolutely. I was doing some freelance work and had the opportunity to attend one of your events there at Belmont University. And Ben Nemton was speaking, and I had never heard of Ben Nemton. I don't know how, but I guess I was stuck in my writer hole. I didn't know who he was. And I was so inspired, Jeremy. It was such an uplifting, encouraging speech. And it came at a time in my life that it was a pivotal time. I was questioning, Lord, I'm trying to write my memoir. Nothing's moving. Do I continue, or is this just for me? And his speech unequivocally made me realize, no, you're called to do this. And something beautiful happened every time Ben would ask, what do you want to do before you die? In my heart, I just heard the Lord's voice, just as he gently nudges our hearts. And it was, Callie, what do I want you to do before you die? And, I had learned to hear the voice of the Good Shepherd. As I heard his voice, I just knew that it was his. And I thought, yes, sir. Yes, Lord, that is exactly the question that I should be asking. What is it that you want me to do before I die? And every time Ben would ask it, I would hear that question. And my husband actually brought me to the meeting that morning. We had some other errands to run in Nashville. And I got into the car and said, honey, who is? Because at the time I thought that would be book 2. And he said, what is it? And I said, what does God want you to do before you die? And Jeremy, when God's blessing is upon a project, it's going to happen. And that's how I, from that moment forward, his grace was upon me to write the book proposal and to pitch it to my agent. And within a very short period of time, a publisher picked it up, which is a hard thing to have happen. So Jeremy, I can't take any credit for this whatsoever, but it has been an honor being the vessel to write this beautiful devotion that I pray will stir people to begin thinking in light of eternity, because death is upon many people's hearts and minds right now. We have been going through quite a year, and none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. And as a Bible-believing Christian, God's word is solid and it is true. And it speaks so often of the fragility of life, and none of us are guaranteed. And so what is it that we're doing? Why are we here? What are we called to do? And this is what you do every day, Jeremy. You're encouraging people to live out their purpose. And I'm echoing that.
Well, and that's, to me, why I'm fully behind this book. And talk about on your end, being a devotional, you share a little bit of your story, but obviously there's inspiration. It's coming to know Christ and be closer. So talk about kind of the way the book reads. And then obviously we'll talk about, as you're mentioning, what the takeaways really are. So talk about how it reads.
Sure. So, I definitely wrote this in a devotional type format because this is a hard topic to talk about. Death is not necessarily something we like to give much time and thought and attention to. So I wrote it in a devotional format so that people could read it slowly, because I often apply this to my own time in scripture study, that I would rather read one verse and understand it and know it and apply it and live it and it be what I live and breathe than to not understand it. So I really wanted to write this in a way that talked about some really tough things, some deep things, but break it down in a way that we can digest it slowly. But for many people, they may want to just read it through, and many have. So either way that it's most comfortable for you. And I also have at the end of each chapter or day, I have a section called to Action. In the business world, we hear what's our call to action, but this is called to action. And that's what we're called to do, to go. And so there is a very, very deep aspect of this book that says, what is my responsibility in this? And how can I take this information and do something?
Yeah, and I think it's so powerful. One, as you alluded to, when you understand your purpose, but now you look behind and kind of the bigger picture of, and that's kind of what I love about this is you take Ben Nimton's stance of what do you want to do before you die? And for those who don't know him, the Buried Life on MTV was one of their top shows, and he and his friends would go around and they would cross something on off their bucket list, something big and audacious and amazing, like playing basketball with the president, and they would help somebody else cross something off theirs. And they learned so much about themselves and others in the process. But you're taking this very personal, what do you want to do before you die, and now making it a much bigger, higher calling of what does God want you to do before you die? And I think understanding your purpose, not just your personal purpose, but why you're on this earth, is extremely powerful. It gives you a due north, but it really does give you power and confidence knowing what you are here to accomplish. And I think coming closer with God is such a huge piece of this, but what do you ultimately hope that people take away from reading this? And what do you hope that relationship, how that is created? What are some of the major takeaways?
Absolutely. My heart, Jeremy, is splattered all over this book. And to know me is to know that my whole testimony is giving Christ my whole heart, not just lip service, not just profession. And so I hope that readers will see that beautiful relationship and then desire that. But Jeremy, I hope that they will see this and read this book and realize that they matter, that they were created for a beautiful purpose. And their life is not arbitrary. It is not random. They have so much to give. And so many times we look at our lives and we say, I'm too young. I'm too old. I've made this mistake. I have done this, or I should have done this, therefore. And it causes us to be immobile. And I want people to just read this and say, I have value by God above. And he put me here on this earth for a reason. Now let's get to it. Let's figure out what this is. And when we ask, he will answer and he will show us why he put us here to begin with. And Jeremy, look around. Is that not needed now? Oh, how needed. Whether it's a phone call to someone that you need to make a phone call to, whether it's a job that there are many things that can be our calling. It doesn't have to be speaking on a stage in front of thousands. Perhaps it is, but perhaps it's not. But that doesn't make it any less valuable. Maybe it's a mother changing diapers. Maybe it's a father working so hard to provide for his family. Oh, how valuable those things are.
Yeah, and it goes back to understanding your worth. And I love the fact that for everyone, understanding that they're worthy and that they have value and that they're put on this earth for a reason really is powerful. How is this book and this devotional, how has it changed you personally?
Oh, wow. In a huge way. From the moment I left that speech, Jeremy, my life has been on a completely different path because I was able to hear what Ben was saying and really begin to analyze, what am I doing? You have to look within first before you can ever really affect people, because we can only comfort others with the comfort we've been comforted with, and to the degree that we have examined our own hearts and lives. So that's what I did first. I took a huge introspective look. What am I doing? What am I supposed to be doing? And I just began doing it, and I have not looked back since. And it has been a beautiful, amazing journey. And I'm excited for what's ahead, no matter what we see externally. Because like you said, when you know that you matter, when you know that you were created with a purpose, and that purpose is going to affect other people, you just have to keep focused and keep going and never stop, because it's worth the effort.
So wrap up and talk about where we can get the book. Once again, the book is What Does God Want You to Do Before You Die? So talk about where we can get it.
Absolutely. Well, if you should be so inclined, it would be an honor for you to read this book. It is available right now at Amazon. It's at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Walmart.com, most of the major retailers. And I want to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear how it's impacting you, because that fuels what we do.
We'll talk about where we can get in touch with you. So website, social media, where do we go?
Absolutely. So you can visit me at calliedaruk.com. That's CallieDaruk.com. And I am on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn at Callie Daruk.
Well, Callie, greatly appreciate all you're doing. Thank you for sharing your story. This book, I'm excited for people to read it and looking forward to seeing how it touches their lives. So thank you for all you do and for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeremy. It was an honor to be here, and thank you for the endorsement. It was beautiful.